the people, by the people. For the culture.
Peace, peace, peace. Jumbo. Welcome to the VITAL HOOPS Podcast, right here on Black Power Media Reloaded. My name is Fernando Cardenas, aka International XB. I am your host, and this is episode number 77. Before we get started, I do want to say that I'm proud to be a part of Black Power Media Reloaded, and this past Monday, February the 17th, was the 4th anniversary of Black Power Media. So shout out to everybody that's been a part of this, from the beginning, from its foundation, everybody that has had, different shows on the network, everybody that consumes this media, everybody that, that's a part of it in one way or another. We appreciate all of you. And with that being said, please make sure you support the network, like, share, subscribe, donate if you can. All right. So today we do have an amazing guest. And shout out to all my guests, man. Shout out to everybody that's been a guest right here on the VITAL HOOPS Podcast. I appreciate all of you. Some of you have been back. Some of you have only been here once. But I give thanks. You know what I'm saying? Our guest today is a British chef of Nigerian descent, renowned for her innovative Afro Vegan cuisine in Paris. She began her culinary journey with a successful Afro Vegan event at L'Embuscade in November 2019, which led to her permanent role as head chef at L'Embuscade. For those of you who don't know, L'Embuscade is one of the top vegan restaurants in Paris and one of the only Afro Vegan restaurants in Paris. And our guest has definitely been instrumental in transforming the restaurant into a celebrated vegan establishment. Our guest today is Phoebe Amalia Dunn. Phoebe, welcome to the VITAL HOOPS Podcast. How you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to have you. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you've been running, back and forth, going to work. I know you got a lot going on your plate. But I thank you, for being here with us today.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. It's my honor and pleasure. I wanna get right into it. Get the listeners and the viewers to know who you are a little bit. So let's take it back. I believe you grew up in London, right?
In the UK, yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool,
Small
cool.
town.
All right, so let's take it back there a little bit. Let everybody know about you. What was it like growing up, of being, of a Nigerian origin, right? And when did veganism, come into your life?
So I was born in a small town called Shrewsbury, which is the West Midlands of the UK.
Okay.
My mother's from the UK. My father is also from the UK because he was born there, but he's of Nigerian origin.
Okay.
He himself doesn't have that much connection with his origins. He's never really met his father. I think he died when he was very young.
Wow. So he grew up in England too, yeah.
Oh yeah. Born and raised in Liverpool. So he's a proud Liverpudlian of working class. So is my mother. And then from the age of 13, I moved to Italy in the countryside. So I've had two very, very different experiences.
What part? I know a little bit about Italy.
Near Pisa, north of Pisa, in the countryside in Tuscany.
My father used to work in Carrara.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, yeah. Where the marble is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was a sculptor. So
there you go.
The marble, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I could have ended up in Carrara too because I did fine art. So
right.
After studying fine art, you have like the path opens towards you and you don't really know what to do and you have to decide. And I decided to move to France and be an artist. That was my thing. But I was almost, there was the choice. You can move to Carrara and study sculpture. You can move to Florence and continue doing, fine art at the academy, or you can just get out of there, which is what I did.
Okay.
So I was born in the UK. I was born to Nigerian on my father's side and UK on my mother's side. I grew up in a small town which is now things have changed. I think over the last 30 years, things have definitely changed. But I was one of the very few mixed race or non-white people that there were in my school.
Mm.
So when we talk about identity, I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Uh, in my experience as a mixed race person, I think identity is definitely something that you have your identity at home,
Hmm.
which is what your parents tell you that you are, and what you know, what you identify with, which is for me, which was very British, which was a
Okay.
British identity. You know the classic phrase people say, you don't see color, but you don't see color as a kid. You just exist as what you
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
are, and then
Yeah.
and then when you start growing up and you talk to your peers in school, and then
Reality is
experience,
different. Yeah.
you experience racism for the
Yeah.
first time, and that is what creates your social identity, whether you like it or not. You
Mm.
can your parents can tell you that you're British as much as they want, but
Right.
when you get to school and you realize that you're definitely not perceived as British by
Absolutely.
your teachers, your peers, um, you definitely feel that identity is something very important, and that
Hmm.
is what creates your identity. And I think something which is quite interesting, or a funny anecdote that I have as a kid. My best friend was an Indian in school, so we were the only two brown people in the whole of our school, and we just happened to live on the same street. We happened to more or less have, the same passions. We were best friends,
Okay.
and just that I was much more taller than she was, but I don't have my father's hair, and I looked a lot like my best friend who was Indian at the time. Um, so when I received slurs, racist slurs, they were always towards as if I was Indian.
They thought you were Indian. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat those racist slurs, but
Yeah.
I didn't take them as if, that's not me, I don't care. For me,
Mm-mm.
I was Indian. I grew up believing at that point that I was Indian. I
Wow.
wasn't part Nigeria, I was just Indian.
Right.
Because my best friend who was Indian was also born in the UK, and so both of us we were just brown British people.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
So when we talk about identity, I think that is something that really creates who you are.
Right.
So when I say, yeah, I'm a British brown person, and then moving to Italy when I was 13, because both my parents wanted to move out of the UK.
Okay.
They wanted to be somewhere where it's a bit more sunny. We used to go there every year in the holidays for summer holiday. Both my parents, they really love trekking and the outdoors and mountains, and where I grew up in Italy, it's very wild,
Okay.
and life is much simpler. So they moved me out there, and that was a whole different story again, because you can tell people that you're English as much as you want, but
Yeah.
Italians are
Italy is, yeah.
also, yeah, they're also racist. They
Yeah.
also have their own history with North Africans.
Yeah.
So for them, I was Moroccan. I could have told them
Yeah.
I'm British. It was just complicated for them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a history of colonialism. They have a history of attempted colonialism, but they don't
Yeah.
have the same history of colonialism and the social history that Britain has. So their experience with people who are not white, because they perceive themselves as white,
Mm-hmm.
Italian, is very different. If you tell them that you're from the UK, that they're going to expect you to be white with blue eyes and with blonde
Yes.
hair.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it was very confusing for them, and it was also confusing for me at that point, because you've got to reaffirm your identity again as a
I hear
British
you.
person, as a
Yeah.
brown British person. I call
Yeah.
myself brown. I think that's what it is. So yeah, that was my history growing up. Yeah.
Okay. So you moved to Italy. What age was that?
I was 13.
Okay. Do your parents have any history of like when you were growing up, was there any one of them vegan or anything like that?
My mum, she was actually a chef in a
Okay.
vegetarian restaurant
Wow.
for 10 years before I was born. And then
Okay.
before I was born, I think a few years before I was born, she then started eating meat again. So
Okay.
I grew up in a family where we ate meat. We
Okay.
ate meat. My
Yeah.
my father, he has a strong connection with some, I think, classic working class British foods.
Okay.
Like smoked fish.
Yeah.
They're quite simple things. Tripe. That's something that I think it has a lot of social connection to tripe. For
Yeah.
example, it's a poor person's food. He'll always like that. but none of them were. Both of them were very
Yeah,
anti fast
tripe.
food.
I was gonna say tripe is crazy. That's like basically kind of chitlins, basically kind
Yeah.
of like that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh
That's what they used to give to our ancestors when they were enslaved. Pretty much the stuff that they wouldn't eat. They would throw that out and give
yeah.
it to the enslaved
Oh
Africans. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, to this day, I mean, yeah, our people are eating this stuff around the world and sometimes calling it soul food and things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Definitely.
yeah, yeah. And so I'm curious, your father didn't like teach you about your African roots as you were growing up?
No,
Not really.
not really. I think first of all, he adopted again. I think his identity as a Black British person
Hmm. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. More so than an African. Yeah.
through his lens of the way he sees modern society, which is under capitalist rule, which is just the next stage from colonial rule, which is
Absolutely.
so when he says I come from Nigeria originally,
Hmm.
it's just the Nigeria that the British drew on a map. It's completely different for Nigerians because they're actually from there. But when you are not born there and you are aware of why you exist as a black man in the UK,
Hmm.
um, for him, it was very important to say that I mean, he does say that because people want to know exactly where it is on the map. It's West Africa, it's Nigeria. But
Hmm.
those lines were drawn. They're straight squares.
That's right.
It's just the land grab between
Europeans, yeah, picking the continent apart for their own good. Yeah.
exactly between the British government and the French government.
Mhm.
I like to use these terms because they're not all people. These
Yeah.
are businessmen. These
Yeah.
are businessmen. These are organizations.
Yeah.
This exactly the same today as what's happening in the Congo.
Absolutely.
So for him, it's important that's how I grew up. He always reminded me, you're mixed race, but don't let anyone tell you that you're not from here because you were born here. I was born here, and you are part of the British working class, whether they like it or not.
Mhm.
Which is what I was brought up with. And then you
Right,
find
right.
yourself confronted with racists, and so you proudly what? I'm a proud, I don't believe in I don't believe in national pride either. What have I got to be proud of for my nation? I'm proud of people. I'm proud of my
Yeah.
people who are working and fighting for liberation.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm
Yeah,
not proud
that's
of
right.
the flag of the British Empire.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, that's what he taught me. I think he taught me more about the history and the importance of learning, understanding why things happen the way they do,
Mm.
understanding why people are going to be racist towards you, or why people are not going to try and understand really what you're saying. But it's also important to understand that I was not born in Nigeria, neither was my father. So for
Right.
him, as an anti-colonial socialist, it's very important for him to say that
Okay.
he's from West Africa. He's not just
Yeah.
from Nigeria. His
Yeah,
roots,
yeah.
which are quite, it's over 3 generations. So, I mean, his roots are from West Africa. They're not from a certain tribe or a certain
Absolutely.
road in Nigeria.
Yeah, yeah. My father was Afro-Cuban, actually.
Mm,
So I'm from right around that area. A lot of our ancestors
yeah,
were Yoruba.
yeah.
Some of them were from the Congo as well, but a lot of them, most of our ancestors were like Yoruba in Cuba. So there's a lot of spiritual, practices that derive straight from the Yoruba tradition in Cuba.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, let's keep going. So when and how does veganism come into your life?
So I was brought up, as you probably understood, I was brought up by two socialists,
Mm-hmm.
both my parents, anti-capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that kind of helped me view the systems that we live in as systems of exploitation,
Mm-hmm.
and also with values which are, I think, basic human values, which is, treat your next as you would want to be treated yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just naturally, at one point, I would ask my parents, if my mum's telling me off for pulling the cat's tail, but at the same time we're eating chicken at dinner.
Yeah, yeah.
I would start, and I think as a kid, I was naturally very attracted. I loved animals as a kid. I didn't care about the Disney films with the princesses. It was really in my personality. I just liked animals so much. I would pick up any animal off the street. I would want to make it my pet. I'm going to admit this on camera right now. I even killed a bird. I didn't even do it on purpose. I found a baby bird. I took it home. My dad said, leave it outside. What are you doing? I wanted to take it home because when you're a kid, animals, they're like fluffy toys to you.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that was my first thing. I wanted to have all the animals in the world. I thought it was
yeah.
like Snow White. But then, I think you make the connection. I was 8 years old when I first went to India with my parents. We went to India for 3 months,
Okay.
and that's when I saw a real food market.
Mm.
Because in the UK, or I think most of the places here in Europe, we're so detached from our food systems and how animals are killed. It was shocking for me. We were just told by the friend that we were staying with, we're going to go to buy some chicken. We're going to go to the market, so come with us. So we went, and I was a small girl, so I was holding onto my mum's hand, and I remember looking at all these chickens in cages, and I didn't even make the connection. I didn't think they're going to kill the chicken. I was like,
Right, right, right.
because we dissociate completely
We do. Yeah.
from the products and the living being.
To this day,
And
yeah. To this day, yeah.
I was traumatized.
Mm.
So they kind of said, which one do you want? And I was like, I want that one. So the man at the market seller, he saw me pointing at the chicken, and he just grabbed it, and then he cut its head off right in front of my eyes because that's how it is.
Mm.
And of course, I was 8 years old, so I cried all the way home. I told my parents, that's it, I'm never eating chicken ever again. For the rest of, and they were like, oh, you're lucky you're in India because there's a lot of vegetarian
Right.
food.
Yeah, true, true, true.
So yeah, that was my first one. I think then it happened over time again when we moved to Italy. I just knew inside I didn't really want to. I knew that we're killing animals. There's only so much dissociation that I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you start thinking about it, and that's like as a kid, which means you're not even conscious yet of the environmental impact, the health issues. You just from it just makes sense just as far as, how you're treating other living beings.
I was quite young, but I found my parents to be hypocrites.
Mm.
They're
Yeah.
teaching me about all this. We need to, work against exploitation. You
Yeah.
need to be careful and mindful of people who you're around because you never know what they've gone through. And don't let anyone put their boot on your neck. But here we are, just completely accepting
Right.
we can just have sausages for dinner. Who cares? And then when you're a kid, you get to go to the zoo. You love all the animals, but then when I think I was 15 when I finally went vegetarian.
Okay.
A friend of my parents, he was a Buddhist, so we met him. We went back to the UK for the Notting Hill Carnival,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going around eating like meats and stuff. I remember I was eating like these kebabs or something. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Mm.
And our friend next to me, he was just eating I remember he was just eating like some fruit and stuff. I was like, "Do you want a kebab?" And he was like, "No, no, no. I'm getting into my Buddhism stuff, and I don't want to eat, pain, because it was a spiritual side for
Right,
him.
right,
He
right.
eats pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come out somewhere. You're
Mm-hmm.
ingesting another being suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I was like, okay,
You thought about it.
yeah, that really struck a chord in me, and I just gave it a go. When I went back, we got back to Italy, and I gave it a go, and yeah, it worked.
Mm.
From then on, I was like, I don't need to do this. But I was a young teenager, and I think people don't really they feel attacked,
Yeah, they
especially when
do.
their culture is all about eating meat.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to say straight away it's because I don't want to kill animals, I don't want to hurt animals. I would try and find that's when I was looking for all the other reasons, which are, environmental reasons. Also, apparently eating meat. I remember I was only 15 and there wasn't like the internet, there wasn't like fast Google search that
Right.
I didn't have that. So I had a few books, I can't remember which ones they were, but there were books on, animal welfare, but not just,
Mm.
it's like, you're also ingesting all the antibiotics that they're giving these animals and all
Yes. Yes.
the pollution. And so I would try and go those ways. I didn't want to be seen as soft, I think.
I get that.
Um, but now I'll just say it. I don't want to eat another. I don't want. Why am I afraid of telling somebody I don't want to kill an animal? I'm not. I don't want to
Absolutely.
kill an animal. I don't want to
And
eat it.
back when you were 15, everybody was probably telling you you're gonna get sick, like you're not gonna get enough nutrients.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Completely, completely.
Yeah.
I think my own parents were slightly worried, but
Yeah, yeah, of
with
course.
my mum, she'd been a vegetarian before. They're very open to it. They didn't. I had no problems at home really with my parents. They supported my choice and they support me up till now. And I think my mother is more or less vegan now.
Okay.
My father also. That they're not very strict, if they'll go out with friends. But yeah, I think they've grown to it, I think.
That's what's up. So listen, so today, I mean, when we speak about veganism, us vegans, we know that there's just like a whole bunch of reasons to be vegan and
Yeah.
there's no reason not to be really. But what would you say is today your main like reason or focus for being vegan? Because a lot of people that, it's important to have a why because we live in a society where, everything is like a trend. People get all types of miseducation and propaganda coming to them from everywhere, and they're quick to change their mind. So what would you say is like your why?
Um, for me, it's just to be aligned with my beliefs. And I
Mm.
think that is the most strongest message because there are so many people we're fighting the same fight, whether we like it or not. We're fighting for liberation. We're fighting for peace. Humans just want peace.
Hmm.
They just want to live in peace.
Yeah,
And the reality is most humans, they don't ask for that much. Really,
that's right.
people don't really want huge cars. We'd like the idea of it, but what do we want really? I think they just want to have a peaceful existence on this earth.
Hmm.
And when I say to not be hypocritical, that's exactly what I mean. It's just to be aligned with my principles. I fight for people's liberation, and how can I not put those same concepts?
Mm.
How can I believe in total liberation of all beings whilst I'm eating a burger
Beings.
with an animal that hasn't even lived 9 months of its whole life?
That's
How
right.
can I think that it's okay? Oh, it's okay. It's not okay for them. But the same people they'll care about their pets. They'll judge Chinese for eating dogs.
Absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But then they'll complete and so many people who are in left-leaning spaces and who are so-called revolutionaries. Um, that's when I think it's a little bit hard with veganism, or it's very intersectional. But there, like we spoke about that before, I think veganism in the Black community, whether it be in Europe or in Africa or in America, in the whole continent of America, it's very different. I think, like I said, their reasons are profoundly political and profoundly personal.
Yes.
Like I said, it comes for, first of all, it's sort of like a response to their own suffering, our own suffering
Yeah.
under colonialism, you know.
Yep. That's what I wanted to ask you next. I wanted to get into Afro veganism. What are your thoughts?
Um, Afro veganism is, I mean, it's such a wide,
Yeah.
like even the word veganism, but Afro veganism is very wide because, like I said, there are different reasons why people of color or black or brown people they become vegan. It can be spiritual,
Yeah.
it can be very spiritual, and I accept that and I really understand it. And there is a need for spirituality. There's a need for connection, a reconnection to our ancestors, a
Absolutely.
reconnection to our history,
Hmm.
you know. And like we said before, I think it's a reconnection also to a spiritual medicine,
Yeah.
you know. It's a way also of not just being vegan, because I'm going to talk about white vegans. I'm going to say the word.
Please do. Please do.
I got a problem with that.
Hey, this is Black Power Media, so go ahead.
Oh man, I've got a problem with them because it became so obvious. It became so blatant to me with the recent what's happening in the Congo, especially what's happening in Palestine.
Hmm.
To see, I have a big vegan community now that follow me, and I think, like I said, sometimes you feel like you are the token black or brown vegan, you are the token black or brown friend.
Mm.
Just to be like, and also, with my restaurant, L'Embuscade, a lot of people I'm okay with that. Humans are just humans. You can't help humans. I'm sure that I have a lot of hypocrisy in me. I have a lot of privilege in me that I'm probably not even aware of, which is okay. That's just the
We
way
all
life
do.
is. We all do. But white European, Eurocentric vegans, they really tend to be completely oblivious and not care whatsoever when it comes to human suffering.
Hmm.
And it came as it was quite it was a moment of reckoning for me to realize at what point that a lot of white people, they don't care about other people. They really
Yeah.
are not. They don't care about real struggle.
Of course, because the system of oppression is global, and so everything is set up to go in a smooth direction for them, to just continue their lives and just be about their business. You know what I'm saying? When you're African or when you're a quote unquote, minority or whatever, you don't fit the status quo, you don't fit the standard. You know what I'm saying? Everything is made white, everything is made for white male Christians, basically. You know what I'm saying? So when you're something different, there's going to be times in which you're going to have a problem. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these people, they don't have these problems. So it's like they have the pathology of just walking around and just living along,
Yeah,
even though all this crazy shit is happening all around them,
yeah.
they're going to choose to act like nothing is
Well,
happening or like they can't do anything about it.
of course.
Mm.
Or, that already means that you're putting animals above non-white people. So it's
Right.
like you have, European or Eurocentric white Christians, then you have the animals, then you have all the other people, the terrorists or whatever you want to call them, which is it just proves the point that I'm trying to make, that it's all about class struggle. It's just about liberation. We are all interconnected. And if we can't understand that, then a white vegan who is just basically wanting to help poor dogs in Asia, but not the poor Asian people in Asia,
Mm.
that I don't care about what they have to say. It means
Yeah.
nothing for me.
Yeah.
It's not. I care more about somebody who is trying to fight colonialism, is trying to fight the capitalistic system, but they're not yet there with veganism. I can connect more with them,
Yeah. Absolutely.
you know? And I think that it's important to be open. It's important to be intersectional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also important not to, I wasn't a vegan all my life. Nobody,
Of
very
course.
few people are. So I
Very
can't
few. Yeah.
expect everyone to be like, have the same awakening that I have.
Nah, you're right,
Um,
but I think we have to understand veganism from that perspective, the anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist perspective. It's very important. And also, I think you're going about it the right way because there's a lot of people that reject veganism because of that, and then they end up, eating meat. Like, I don't feel like that's the right thing to do. Like, if you're,
mm,
if you don't like how white vegans are, maneuvering the whole thing, it
mm,
doesn't mean you have to reject veganism. Quite on the contrary, I think. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
You have to find ways to make it work for us because, as African people, respecting other living beings,
That's exactly it.
respecting the ecosystem, all of that is part of our culture and
It's
who we
just
are.
respect. That's what
Yeah.
I tell a lot of people. I'm not expecting people to love animals and find them really
Mhm.
cute. I don't care about that.
Right.
I
Right.
don't use That's why I use the word love, but it's respect. It's just respect.
That's right.
I'm not expecting you to find all animals cute and fluffy. I don't, but I can see that they suffer. I can see that they deserve to live
Yeah.
a dignified life on this earth, and they
That's right.
didn't ask for any of all this.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm asking of when I come into this debate with quite a lot of people that come to L'Embuscade, to our restaurant. We
Yeah.
always get into these debates because we also we attract many people who aren't vegan at all,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and which is cool, which is really good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's also part of that's the point. True. Like we want people who aren't vegan to try that great food and
We try to see veganism. We try to portray veganism that doesn't have to be. I use the saying because I'm in France. I say Brigitte Bardot. You've
okay.
probably heard of Brigitte Bardot.
Yeah.
And this is what I call the vegans that, I've actually unfollowed, unconnected with a lot of them since they've never said anything about the human struggles and the genocide that is going on.
Yeah.
For me, they're just a bunch of Brigitte Bardot. They're just, if you don't believe, if you're not fighting racism or oppression of all living
Yeah.
beings, then all you want to do is just stroke your little pet cat at home, and you're useless to me. You're useless for the fight. You're not going
That's
to
right.
help us. And
That's
you're
right.
definitely
Yeah.
not going to help even animals, which is
Mm-hmm.
what my point was at the beginning when I said, what a lot of the pushback that has been against veganism, at least in Europe, which has been from the Black and brown community, is But, I haven't seen these people fight for us, all these people, helping out the poor animals or fighting. They feel sorry for animals being tested in laboratories, but they're not sorry about poor people. They're not sorry about
Mhm.
about the brown communities or black communities in their own country.
Yeah,
And my answer to that was, you can care about both. Of course, you can care
absolutely.
about both.
That's right.
What
Yeah,
stops you from caring about both things?
yeah.
And actually, with what happened in Palestine a while ago, that just proved their point. So many vegans don't care.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
just have their own little agenda where they have to feel like they're protecting something, or they have to
Yeah,
fight. They have to find a fight, something to
yeah.
fight for. And unfortunately, they can't see further than their own experience, which is, I'm a privileged white person in Europe, and I feel very sorry for the animals. That actually, it's quite patronizing,
Mhm.
because animals can't really talk for themselves. So it's easy to fight for animals.
Mhm.
It's not easy to fight for the liberation of a whole people that
Sure.
maybe I have nothing to do with these people, but they can speak. They might even annoy me. We might not even have the same political views. I'll still fight for their liberation.
Right.
So I think it's easy, for people who have already a lot of privilege to become vegan. It's a
Mhm.
completely different path for brown and black people. Completely
It
different.
is. There's another aspect that I also, don't like is when people vilify, the act of being vegan for another reason than animal rights. You know what I'm saying? People will say like, if you became a vegan for health reasons, oh, you're not really a vegan. Or if you became a vegan for environmental reasons, you know what I'm saying? Like it has to be, nah, it's just about the animals, right? Personally, I think it's actually all connected. All three main reasons to be vegan are connected because the
Yeah,
environment, is connected to your health and it's connected to the animals as well.
it's
And
all
so,
connected.
yeah, it's all connected.
It's very true. And I think it's interesting that you say that, because sometimes I understand that little, I get it, what they want to say,
Mm, mm,
because you're still not seeing the animal as a living being, as a living sentient being. You're doing it for yourself. Like, these people have been oppressed and forced to eat
yeah.
terrible food
Mm,
for I don't know how many generations, for
mm.
generations and generations. And you're going to point your finger at them and be like, nah, that's not good enough.
Right, right. And also, I don't know if you're familiar with are you familiar with Ari Slatan?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
what he says is that, I'm worried about this animal right here. And if I take care of this animal right here, the other animals don't have to worry about it. You know what I'm saying?
yes.
So by taking care of yourself, you're gonna also leave the animals alone and therefore, take care of it and let the wildlife happen and, all of
Exactly. And I
that.
think that all paths are okay. It's everyone, like,
Yeah,
humans are different. Life is messy.
that's right.
I like
And
that. I always say that life is messy. It's
that's
true.
right.
You can't, humans are just human beings, and if
Hmm.
they choose to stop eating or to stop contributing to mass meat production, and stop contributing to ecocide for whichever one of their reasons,
Yeah, that's right.
am I really going to point my finger at them for,
And,
for
and you
being
start
kind of
and you
caring about themselves?
Nah, and you start for whatever reason, but then you educate yourself about the other reasons, and that's how
Exactly.
you understand that that you're going the right way because there's various angles to this thing.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's they're all very valid. We had
Of course.
a like an Afro vegan little Christmas market that we did in December.
Okay.
And no, sorry, it was last December, so it was a year and a
Okay.
half ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And I invited some people to talk. We had some conferences, and
Nice.
most of them were black. I think
Yeah.
we're all black. Um, One was they were very interesting. I think one was a chef who is not vegan.
Okay.
She's not vegan, but she's open. She's actually more. She's not a vegan, but she doesn't eat meat.
Okay.
She'll still eat fish sometimes because her father comes from the fish.
Vegetarian kind of?
Yeah, but she was talking about nutrition and ancestral nutrition,
Mm,
and I thought that was really important to have her, because she has done so much for the community here
mm,
to teach people about going back and eating different types of African grains,
mm.
going back to your own roots and finding the importance in healing plants and medicine. So what she had to say was really interesting, and a lot of mostly white vegans that were there listening to this conference, they got up and left.
Mm.
They weren't, I could see a few of them, they were like, why am I talking to a meat eater, basically? I'm like, this isn't all about you.
Right. It's a good thing that they left. They shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Well, yeah, like she openly said at the beginning, listen, guys, I'm not vegan, but really thank you so much for inviting me. And I could see, I felt, you could feel in the crowd, people like, why is this woman here? And it's like, well, because actually she has something really interesting to say.
Right.
And she's open-minded, which is what you want, But then again, if we want to continue, with white veganism, so-called white veganism, or people who are disrupting, I think activism is very important, So sometimes I've had a few people that come to L'Embuscade and they've got to know me and they've said something that sometimes I don't really like, which is, oh, you're not one of those annoying vegans, you're really cool.
Yeah,
and I say, hey, if you want, I can be very uncool.
Right.
I'm just not saying what you don't want to hear right now. This is my job right now. What I want to do is I want to showcase veganism as something that can be cool, something that can be easy, something that can be flavorful, something that people from different backgrounds can really enjoy, And that's what we want to do at L'Embuscade. But I told them, if you want the vegan propaganda, I can give it to you straight.
Right.
He was like, oh, well, no. And I was like, yeah, well, don't put me one of those annoying vegans because I can be that if you want, because I think it's important,
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's what activism is, that's what protest is. It is making people uncomfortable.
Yeah, creating uncomfortable, situations is key, and it's about that's what growth is about too. You got to get into uncomfortable situations.
Otherwise, it's like, but it's the same way that, and that's what I bring that up to people who are from the African diaspora here. I'll tell them, well, what about when the French government decides to complain or they have a lot to say about people protesting for basic human rights here? They love to treat you like savages. They like to talk about us as if we're the ones creating problems. Yeah. But you have to create that problem for people to talk about your issue.
That's right. Yeah.
People they would love you to just be quiet. But you're not going to be, because this is something that you believe strongly in. So I believe firmly in this, and there are different ways of going around it, but it is important for people who are activists to go out and disrupt and create tension, because that's what's going to get you thinking, And then I'm in the background being like, here's some really tasty food.
That's right, yeah.
Some really tasty food. We're really cool and laid back here, This is nice. Yeah. But I also want you to witness,
Yeah. So I want to get into that right now. We've been having a great conversation, and we haven't gotten to the chef part. You're a chef. You're a super duper vegan chef. So let's get into that. When did you fall in love with this culinary art, and when did you become a chef?
Well, I just love eating. So this is my thing. I love eating. That's what I say to people. First of all, I love eating. I don't love cooking. I love eating. And I know that most of the time when I go and eat out, it's not going to be what I had this idea in my head of what I wanted, the flavors that I want in my mouth,
Okay.
And I'm like, I just want to make it. I've always been somebody who's been very creative. I went to art school, I've always had to use my hands. I've tried the office job. It didn't work. Didn't work. I have to use my hands. I've got to create something.
Yeah.
And then I had just this, I think, what happens, maybe it's not the same. Everyone has a different walk of life, but after coming back from 4 years in the Congo Brazzaville, I lived there for 4 years with an ex of mine, and I came back and I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Either I continue doing what I'm doing, which was I was working in nightclubs, I was dancing, I was working in nightclubs, but that's a tiring job. I knew that I couldn't continue that. I was like, I've got to do something, and I think. A good friend of mine, he told me something which is like, you think everyone hears these little phrases, but he said, just do what you love.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on. He was like, just do what you love, do what you love, try cooking. And I was like, if nobody wants to eat, vegan food. And at that time, I wasn't fully vegan. I was vegetarian, but I was eating a cheese every now and then, sometimes some eggs. I wasn't really being very strict when I went out, And also when I was in the Congo, when I was in the village, we went right up north in the village, there's only so much you can be the complicated vegan, in the village where people they're welcoming you with open arms and grilled. There's only so much. Like I said, I'm not one of those complicated so-called vegans, but I like to. And they
Absolutely.
said,
I
just do
know
what
what
you
that's
love.
like.
And I was like, oh, come on, nobody wants to eat my food. And he was like, well, you made me like broccoli, so just do it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I tried, I tried. I met, and then I met my partner who is my current partner.
Okay.
He owns L'Embuscade.
Okay.
He wanted to start cooking there, and he was already very interested in veganism. Uh, by that time, I wanted to start my own food truck. That was my plan.
Okay.
I wanted to be out there, food truck, just do my thing. And he was like, "Well, we've got a kitchen that we only use as a cloakroom, so let's do it. Let's try." So I had to think: am I going to go ahead with this food truck thing, or am I going to start in a place which already has a
Restaurant.
kitchen?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
warm.
Yeah, yeah. That's a different experience. Yeah.
So yeah, we started at L'Embuscade, and it was a success. I think we
Yeah.
had quite a few months of people really didn't know what was going on because it's a rum bar. It's a well-known club in
Yeah, yeah. For the listeners who don't know, L'Embuscade is definitely one of the few and best, Afro vegan restaurants in Paris. And yeah, like you said, it's a nightclub as well, a bar, nice parties and
yeah,
it's a great, cozy place. And
yeah.
so yeah, so you
Thank you.
started out that and yeah, congrats.
Thank you
It's
very much.
it's amazing. We need more places like that. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we just ended up going on this. We didn't realize that it would turn into this journey of also for my partner Patrick.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's when it took him, I think, 2 months, and he was like, "That's it, I'm vegan. I don't need to eat this. I
Wow.
don't need to eat meat,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fish. Look at this, And then he himself started looking at his own background and his own. He's from Cameroon,
Hmm.
but he grew up in the Congo, so
Okay.
he's very Congolese culturally,
Right, right, right.
and his childhood, even his childhood was in the Congo, but his roots are in Cameroon.
Okay.
And it was a very special moment for him. It's like it's an onwards, it's a journey, especially as a black man living in France most of his life. Um, he was discovering all this food that he kind of looked over that he didn't really realize that. Hang on, but like our main breakfast that we eat in the Cameroon every day is vegan.
Mm,
The mikate, beignet,
absolutely.
haricot. You
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah, absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
just it's like that. We've been eating that all my childhood.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of our dishes, a lot of African dishes, are plant-based for sure. That's why, most of when you look at the names, it's also all most of them plants. It's not like European dishes that have meat names.
Oh yeah,
Most African dishes have plant names. And usually most of the dishes, the meat is cooked separately and then it's added at the end
of
because,
course.
it's not necessary. Yeah, yeah.
It's not necessary, but I mean, that's also something that I like to say because when we say Afro vegan, of course, we get a lot of questions,
Yeah, 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 definitely.
from black people, from the black community, also from white people, from mixed race. But we're in Paris, so there's a bit of everyone.
Yeah.
But the first thing a lot of people is like Afro and vegan. How is that possible? It's like African food, vegan.
Yeah.
And as Patrick likes to say to people, well, it's actually easier to make African food vegan than it is to make classic French food vegan. We don't have to use fake meat or fake. We don't use any of that. We just
Right.
we just take out the meat and the fish,
Mm,
but the recipe stays more or less exactly the same.
that's right.
So like you can have a mafe, which is in West African English they would usually say groundnut soup,
Yeah.
groundnut stew. In Mali or Senegal, it's called mafe.
I love
So,
mafe, yeah.
oh, me too.
Mm,
But the idea is that you can have mafe with meat, you can have mafe with fish.
mm,
Why can't you just have mafe with vegetables? It's still a
that's right.
mafe, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was kind of like a revelation for me also. I had to realize that even in my own roots and my father's roots,
Yeah,
it was a journey. It was a real journey, and it still is. It's an ongoing journey. And
for
it's a
sure.
real pleasure to discover all these things. All these different flavors. And from a health perspective now, after 7 years of myself of being vegan,
Hmm.
it's really interesting. Like there are so many things so many spices and products and vegetables and nuts that are consumed on the African continent that are so healthy for us.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
healthy. They're so good for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Superfoods, like
They're
crazy.
superfoods.
Yeah, yeah.
and you feel like, well, what are we doing? Why are we extracting this and replacing it with fried chicken? You know,
Yeah,
so
because we're colonized. That's what.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and like I think I said before, when I meet elder Africans, I'm going to say Africans, but I think more West and Central Africans because these are the people I end up interacting with most. They tend to be much open to the idea of vegan or sometimes I'll say vegetarian because um, it might seem less white or aggressive towards them,
Yeah.
or just plant-based African food. They're much more open to that than people who are maybe second generation Black French, where they've grown up in sometimes on the outskirts of cities where there is a politics put in place where
Yeah.
whole foods aren't available to them. It's not available to us if you're
It's
in a
not.
working class community. It's
No, it's
always
not.
been the same
It's
across.
all, it's all, yeah, everywhere. But that's by design. Yeah, that's by design. It's all fast food, and it's very hard to get a hold of fresh fruits and vegetables and
Yeah,
get the nutrients you need.
yeah, it's the same in the UK. It's becoming even more obvious now. My father went back only 6 months ago, and he was like, there's this. I think there's a supermarket called Fresh Foods. You go in, nothing is fresh.
Right.
It's called Fresh Foods, but
Yeah.
there is no fruit or vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't get the education either about nutrients,
No,
what
and then it
all.
becomes something that, it's a white person thing. And when you say
Yeah.
white,
Yeah.
when this community says white, we don't just mean white. We mean privileged white because we forget that there are white working class people.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have the privilege of being white, but they are still working class.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
they've suffered under the empire for
Hmm.
generations and generations.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they're being brainwashed like they always have been to think that black people or gay people are their enemy, when it's
True.
definitely not this. And yeah, like when I said my father used to eat tripe, because he was used to eating tripe as a British person, British working class eat tripe, because that's all there was. There are even less spices and less flavors. It's disgusting.
I
Which
don't even I don't want to picture it too much. I'm
oh
good. I'm
no,
good.
no, no, no! I can't. I
I'm,
can't.
I'm good.
Yeah, me too.
So listen, let me ask you this though. You didn't go to school to become a chef?
No, 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 no,
Wow,
no. I just love cooking.
that's
I
great.
just love
That's
cooking, and I
great.
love feeding people. I love, I
Uh-uh.
love, I love that moment where we're eating together. I mean, that's like
Mm-mm.
another thing that if I'm by myself, I usually won't cook something very special. But if it's just one more person, then I'll make a whole thing about it. It's my passion,
Yeah,
and I
yeah, yeah.
think food is really it's sharing. It's love, and at the same time, it's cultural. It's really
Definitely.
important. And like we were talking about how, for example, here in urban spaces, poorer neighborhoods, fast food has become cultural,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which means there's a sentimental attachment to it,
Hmm.
which we can't ignore. Which is the same as when we talk about soul food.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And I think we need to be very sensitive and careful in the way we're talking about these things. And that's why I realized that it's important also to make vegan fast food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's
I
also
agree with you.
important to share the knowledge, and it's important to teach.
Yeah. You're making a good point. I think it's also important for us to be able to question culture and habits. You know what I mean? And I think we need to redefine a lot of things, as oppressed people. I feel like culture needs to be redefined. I like to see these things more as subculture, and I believe that cultural things are only things that push the people in the right directions to me, right? So is culture works for the people, not the other way around, I believe, you know
Mm,
what I mean?
mm,
So, and I also think that we have to decolonize everything that we do. We have to decolonize our diet. We have to
mm,
decolonize our culture. We have to decolonize our religions, whatever it
mm.
is that we're a part of. Everything has to be, revolutionary because, like I said, we live in under global white hegemony. You know what I mean? And we need to be
So,
conscious of that fact and move accordingly.
of
You know?
course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's a shame that so many people, so many brothers and sisters, they can't see that, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like I said, I mean, we were talking about fast food, but even Nike,
Of
it's
course.
been sold as a culture.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I've got a few black friends who are, revolutionary. They're left leaning. They'll wear a Nike and they'll be like, it's part of my culture. I'm like, but this is the company that is responsible, you
For the
know,
oppression of our people.
the
Yeah.
oppression of the people that
Yeah.
you're saying that that you're supposed to be supporting, you're supposed to be helping.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to wear Nike. That's not part of, I don't want that to be part of my culture. But like, we need to be careful because it is, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah. And like you said, it's every time every time we do something, we have to do it has to be a conscious decision. Whatever we wear, whatever we eat, whatever we buy, and that doesn't mean that because a lot of people think, oh, you're a revolutionary, it's gonna be a horrible life. That's what the propaganda sells us, to make
Yeah,
people get away from the struggle, you
yeah,
know. So it's important for us to, make sure that people understand that, yo, we can still dress nice, we can still have fun, you know what I'm saying? We could still have a good time as people who are fighting to destroy these systems of oppression,
oh, of
you know?
course.
And
I
so
think
yeah.
it's
Mm.
it's it's love,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's important not to lose track,
That's right.
and that's where I believe, the word faith comes in. I'm not a religious person. Personally, I don't believe in a higher being.
Mm,
I believe in Mother Nature. If I want to
mm,
believe in a higher being, in a creator, I believe in what we have here on this earth.
mm.
I think that the way that we see heaven and hell, these are completely human creations
Right.
because humans are capable of creating hell on earth, as we've seen.
Definitely.
Humans are also capable of creating heaven on earth. These are the two opposites. And I think when the concept of faith within revolutionary ideas is very important because if we don't have faith, again, there are complete parallels with religious teaching or spiritual teachings. You must have faith.
Absolutely.
If we don't have faith, then what am I fighting for?
Exactly, exactly.
Even if
Yeah.
the struggle is hard.
I think we have to have even more than faith. I think we have to know deep down in our core that we're gonna win. We have to
Yeah,
know and understand that we're gonna win,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Because what about my own ancestors? Be it British or be it Nigerian, or as a woman, the women who fought for my own rights before me, they had faith.
Hmm.
Otherwise, what were they doing, risking their lives?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What about the black activists that fought for equal rights
Yeah.
in London? They put their life on the line. They had faith that they were going to get somewhere.
Definitely. And if it wasn't for all that struggle, we'd still be in chains today, or chains
Exactly.
or at least working 15 hours a day, and so we
Yeah,
have to be you have to be conscious of that. Definitely.
have to be. And
Um,
so, yeah, faith is really important for me.
for sure. I agree with that. So let me ask you this one thing. L'Embuscade, the great restaurant. If people go out there, tell me a typical nice dish that they can savor.
Okay. So at the moment, we're very West African.
Okay.
I'm working with a Senegalese guy in the kitchen. He's a chef. He's called Al Fusaini.
Nice.
And so for me, it's important to work alongside Africans in the
Of course.
kitchen so that we can both share our knowledge, share
Hmm.
what we like to do, share our flavors.
Hmm.
So yeah, one of the dishes is mbahalu saloum, which is a little bit like chep or a bit like their version again of jollof rice, but it's cooked with crushed peanuts. So
Okay.
it's a mix of broken rice, crushed peanuts, and again, in the traditional dish, there might be some meat that's added at the
Yeah.
end, but we don't put the meat.
Yeah.
We grill some mushrooms, we grill
Ooh,
peppers
sounds good.
on a
Sounds real
skewer,
good.
and it's served with mafe sauce. Get some more peanuts in there.
Let them know what the mafe. Yeah, yeah. So for the people who don't know,
Yeah,
yeah, peanut butter. Yeah.
yeah, peanut butter
Yeah,
sauce. Yeah.
for sure.
Um, so that's one of our best sellers.
Mm,
Whenever you've got mafe, it's always a bestseller. But
yeah.
we always
Can't go wrong with that.
we have infighting between me and my colleagues because I always want to put something completely different. I want to get out of like the because loads of French they all know mafi yassa.
Yeah,
Nafi
of
yassa. I
course.
was like, there's more. There is so much
Yeah, you
more.
want to get experimental with it. Yeah,
I want to experiment.
yeah,
I want to prove that there's other stuff than just Nafi yassa.
for sure,
I
for
also
sure.
want to prove that I know how to do other things than just, But we always have to have one little, because we have to stay open towards, what the French community is capable of
Yeah, yeah,
dealing with. At least there's one dish that they'll recognize and they'll be okay with that.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we've not there's ndole. We've done ndole, which
Okay.
was very, very successful. I've brought back yassa. That was another one, yassa, which is with, caramelized onions.
Yeah.
Put some more veggies in there. So there's carrots, courgettes, peppers, olives, very
Nice.
mustardy, very spicy.
Mm.
And yeah, we bought some tofu as well. I get some tofu skewers in there. So we marinate it in like a mango sauce, and then it's fried. So it's crispy fried tofu.
Nice.
So yeah, I like playing
That's
around.
good. What about desserts?
The moment I've got to get some rum in there. So we're doing a pan-seared plantain, which is like rum flamed,
Nice.
So it's a
Sounds good.
classical like West Indies banana flambe, So it's seared plantain, very ripe, and then you get some rum, spiced rum at the end.
Uh-huh.
Give it that nice caramelized burned texture, and then we have it with some vegan whipped cream.
Sounds good. Sounds great. Getting
I'm
hungry
all
over
about
here.
flavor. It's all about flavor. It's all
That's
about
good.
getting the flavors in. Also about, I like putting some spice in there because the French they can't take spice.
Yeah,
So we
they
always
can.
have that infighting as well. And my partner's like, Phoebe, it's way too spicy. I'm like, oh come on, they came here for a trip. They want
Right.
cash.
Yeah,
They
you gotta
want
tell them that's the
safari.
Afro
Give them the safari. I want to see them crying.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Phoebe, listen, man, it's been great. I appreciate you really
Thank you so much.
taking the time. Before you go, I want to ask you for a book recommendation. I like to do book recommendations, I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of our people are getting too much information from like, short 30-second clips and things
I
like
know.
that.
I know.
And we do need to get back to the books, and
We do.
to the knowledge. I think it's
Completely.
important.
Completely agree with you on that one. I think it's messing with our brains. It's messing with our attention spans. It's I just want to put a little word in there. I think it's done on purpose so that we can't actually properly
Absolutely.
concentrate on real issues.
Yeah.
So I myself sometimes, I have to be on Instagram because of my job, which it's really conflicting with me because if it wasn't for my job, I think I would have deleted Instagram by now because it takes up so much time. Anyway, apart from that,
I hear
so, yeah, book recommendations. I think I was gonna say the obvious is The Fire Next Time, James Baldwin.
Yes. Well, you could give me a second one if you want. We'll put
Second
both.
one
We'll put both in the
is
description.
definitely, I think it's by Jack London's People of the Abyss. It's an amazing book because I think
Nice.
it's very important that we don't lose sight of the systems that we live in and that even though the British Empire was effectively committing genocide, it was effectively enslaving people, and it was effectively pillaging the whole of the African continent and also a part of Asia, India, There were people who were just working class British people. They were suffering and they've suffered for generations and generations. And we must not forget that things aren't just black and white.
Okay.
And the first victims of the British Empire were its own. We had children dying in mines, children working from the age of 8. It was basically child slavery. The only reason it wasn't called slavery is just because it wasn't people who were different looking. But I think it's very important to realize that we're all human beings in this. But I hate those kind of phrases. We're all human beings. I don't see color. Well, I definitely see color. But yeah, I think also we're all suffering under capitalism, and we all.
No doubt. I'm gonna definitely check that one out. I haven't read that one.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm gonna recommend one today. I'm going with The Emancipation of the Women and the African Struggle for Liberation by Thomas Sankara.
Oh, great!
This one is it's in Spanish though. I got it in Cuba.
Oh, wow!
But yeah, this is a great one. This is a great book.
Oh,
I'm gonna recommend this one.
I have to read that one now.
Yeah, for sure. Check it out. Let me know what you think.
Thank you very much.
For sure. All right, it's been a great one. Oh, before you go, please give us I know you want to delete it, but still give us your socials. Give us your socials and also the restaurant. Yeah,
it's Phoebe Amalia So it's all Phoebe Amalia,
Yeah.
and that's just my name, chef name. And then L'Embuscade Pigalle, which is where L'Embuscade is in Paris. And
No doubt.
check us out. Yeah, come check us out.
Appreciate it. Yeah. I'm going to have all that info down in the description. Make sure you give Phoebe a follow. And also, if you're around France, you're around Paris, make sure you get to that restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Have some of that good,
have
some of that good Afro vegan food.
Oh,
you know? Yeah. Appreciate your time. Phoebe, thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Peace.
Bye.
All right. That's it. Episode 77 is in the books. We give thanks to Chef Phoebe and to all of you watching and listening and supporting the VITAL HOOPS podcast. This was the second chef that came through the VITAL HOOPS podcast. We had the good brother Chef Troy come through on episode 43. Definitely VITAL HOOPS podcast episode 43 with Chef Troy. You know, he's an VITAL chef. So shout out to Chef Troy. And again, shout out to Phoebe. We appreciate that good plant-based cooking. Please support the show if you can. Black Power Media, VITAL HOOPS, for the people, by the people, for the culture. Uhuru.